Today's morning briefing, we're just going to take a look at a tool called Nmap or Network Mapper. It's a command line tool that allows us to scan IP addresses and glean some information, see what hosts are up, what services are running on them, and those type of things. So let's go take a look at what we can find. All right, so I'm here on Kali Linux, and I want to open up a terminal. So I'm going to open up a terminal, and I'm going to go ahead and jump into root or the administrative. So I want to type in sudo su, and then I need to give it the password. And now that I'm here, let's figure out what network are we on. So let's do if config, and I can see right here the address for this machine. So that tells me that I'm on the 192.168.12.0 network. Okay. So let's type in clear and kind of get that out of our brain, so it's kind of out of our way. And let's do nmap -ss for a stealth scan. Kind of down and dirty quick. It's going to scan the first 1,000 ports. 192.168.12.0/24. That /24 is the last octet, so it's going to scan 254 addresses. All right, got it. So this will take just a minute, and it's going to go scan all of those addresses and see what it can find. There we go. All right, so let's talk about what did we find. So right off the bat, it found this address, which is my default gateway. And it's this device right here. So that's going to be my router, modem, TMO. Well, what could that possibly be? T-Mobile. Okay, that just happens to be my ISP. But that can, very easily tell me what this is. Okay. I get the MAC address for that and the few ports that are open. Telnet right here, which is pretty much a no-no. We don't use it, but you notice it's filtered. That term filtered means it's behind the firewall. Okay, so let's look at some other devices. This device right here doesn't tell us much about it other than this port is open for admin and it's VMware. So this is a machine running in a VMware environment. It is a virtual machine. Okay. This device right here, this IP address of 192.168.12.124. I get the name of the machine, Padre Work. That just happens to be me. And this is my desktop. And so if I can see, ports that are open right here. And I also get, what is this device? And what it actually is one of those small, tiny cube computers that I'm using now. It's amazing how much power we can pack into such a small device. But that's what that one is. All right, so this address right here, 192.168.12.149. Well, what is it? When I look here, I see that it is HP, right? So I know it's Hewlett Packard. Could be a laptop, could be a desktop, could be a server. Don't know yet, but let's begin to look down through some of these open ports, and I see that I have this port is open. Jet Direct. What could that be? Well, specifically, it's a printer. Okay. So when I see that, or I have Jet Direct, that is definitely telling me it's a printer, whether it was HP or whether it's Epson or any other number of printers. All right, so I got this address right here. Doesn't give me any name for the machine. Tells me, some of the ports like Secure Shell is closed, port 22. So it's not really open for remote administration. But I do have this port open. And if I keep coming down, so I know I have both of these, right? Web ports open. But if I come on down, I see that it's a Dell, okay? So we'll go back and take a deeper look at that in a minute. Again, it could be a laptop, could be a desktop, could be a server. At this point, we're not real sure. So we'll probably have to query that a little bit more. This address right here, I see 999 ports are closed. But in other words, they're not open. I only have one open port right there. And there's what it is. Vizio. Anybody care to take a guess what that is? Smart TV. Okay. This address right here, 192.168.12.212. So it's telling me that it's T-Mobile mesh access point. If you remember back up here at the top, we saw that here was our main modem, our default gateway, and it's T-Mobile, okay? So down here, this is a access point that's creating a wireless mesh right within the environment. I have this address. The device is named Sheila.LAN, which happens to be another desktop. I know that because it's mine, but it doesn't really tell me what specifically it is, okay? But I do know that because of this, right, it's running a Microsoft environment. So it is a Windows environment. And then I get this address, all right, 192.168.12.246. Not really telling me what it is. I got Secure Shell is open, but it also has this port open for Zeus admin. But it specifically tells me it's VMware. So that means it is a virtual machine, right? It's telling me that it's a virtual machine in that environment. And then I have this one that's up, and it doesn't tell me much about it. But it does give me the name, Kali.LAN, which is the machine I'm currently on, right? The Kali machine. Okay, so let's clear that. And let's run a couple of different scans. So let's try. We're going to run this. Only here we're going to run a -ST for TCP ports. So this is specifically looking for communication that is TCP. So I'm going to get these same machines, but it's showing me which ports are specifically TCP. All right, so let's clear that. And we can do that again, and let's come up here and let's do SU. This is specifically going to be for UDP as opposed to TCP. So it may take a minute. So what are some of the purposes of these scans? Well, one, we can discover what network hosts are up, okay? And from an admin standpoint, I can use it to see what devices are up and possibly, do I have any rogue devices in my network? In other words, these are devices that are deployed, they're up, they're running. I don't have any documentation. I didn't deploy them and they're not technically under my management, so they're a rogue device. I could also look for legitimate devices that might have rogue services running on them that I didn't deploy, okay? Possibly like a backdoor. And a lot of times backdoors will be way up high in the ports, right? They'll use, you know, some odd port way up high. Now, one of the things too that I have to remember is that a lot of things are running in the background. Like in a Windows environment, there are a lot of dependencies. There are a lot of things running on these upper ports. And so I have to kind of go investigate and figure out what's what, right? Now the bad guy can and does, right, use these techniques to scan networks, looking for, you know, specific devices, what those operating systems are. Then they may take that operating system inversion and they'll go look for specific, you know, exploits to try to compromise that device. So a question comes up a lot is scanning somebody's network illegal? Technically, no. However, it's a bad idea, right, without permission, because there's really only one reason to do it, and that's a precursor to an attack. You're looking for a way in. So while technically it's not illegal, you could inadvertently, depending on the type of scan you're running, if you're querying asking for too much information, you could bog down the network and inadvertently cause a denial of service on that network. The minute that happens, you cross the line. You have now interrupted their network and you have basically, you know, broke the law. So it's a good idea to just not do it, right, unless you have permission to be doing it. It's taking a long time to tell me I don't have anything running in UDP, other than maybe DNS. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you get the idea, right? So this is, I'm just going to kill that because we could wait all day for that to happen. You can go after more specific machines, right? Where maybe you do dash SS dash A. All right. It did not complete. Okay. 192.168.12.184. What I'm doing here is the one address we talked about a minute ago, and it's a Dell. We don't know what it is. This one may take a minute too, because it's going to go and ask it for a lot of information to try to drill down exactly what is this machine and what's running on this machine. So this one's probably going to take a couple minutes, but we're going to get back a lot of information. So we can definitely use Nmap to figure out, some things that are going on in the network. Like I said, what hosts are up, services that are running. Do I have any rogue devices or rogue services that are running in the environment? And should those be running? And that's really the question when I get back some of this information is that what I should expect to see? And a lot of times when we run vulnerability scans, we not only are looking for known vulnerabilities or behavioral issues through heuristics. In other words, it's looking at the protocol, is it being used properly, but we will also use a answer file or template of what each machine should look like, based on what those deployments look like. And so it'll kind of do an apples and apples, right? And we're running different vulnerability scanners like OpenVOS or Nessus and checking our network. There are a lot of different switches that you can use, right? ST for a TCP scan or SU for UDP. You could use a TCP fin or null or even what we call a Christmas tree scan. There we go. She completed. So this is what I want to show you. A lot of information, right? So we began to scan this, and I see the DNS is localhost at local domain. It's VMware authentication daemon. So you just get lots of information. It's using UTF-8 as the encoding. And then you can see down here it starts all of this. I can see that, right, it's VMware. So it looked at a document, Vim, which is a Linux text editor. And so now it starts looking at fingerprints. All right, so let's get down here to the bottom. And when it finally completes, it tells me it is VMware, it is ESXi host, and it's version 8.0.3. So it tells me specifically, and then it even ran traceroute for me to tell me how far away it was. Currently 1 hop because it's connected directly in the network. But those are just some of the little things that we can do to try to figure out what's going on in the network. All right. Well, I appreciate you joining me, and next time we'll take a look at TCP dump.